If you want to save yourself some time, and time is money, then you owe it to yourself to create mix templates. And for those of you out there who've been watching Real Home Recording for a while, you guys know that I like to mix in two different stages. The first stage is the virtual recording console, as if I had a large format recording console in this studio to record with. Well, I can replace it with software to an extent and get a good sound that way. That way, when I load it into the SSL mix console or whatever it might be, but usually it's SSL, then I have great sounding tracks already. And at that point, automation is the main task at hand, along with maybe adding some reverb and delay and bus stuff. Anyway, let's build the Focusrite Studio Console mix template, because this thing was designed by Rupert Neve. Yes, the man, the myth, the legend, Rupert Neve was at his perhaps biggest pinnacle back in 1985 when the Studio Console was originally released, commissioned by, I believe, George Martin of the Beatles fame. And guess what? We now have it in software form to use on our humble home studio recordings. Let's go! It's important to note with this video that if you want to save a lot of money, just use stock plugins. In fact, in a lot of digital audio workstations, the stock plugins are pretty darn good. And if you're happy with them, go for it. This video is not to say you have to have these pieces of software. It's just to show you guys what I'm using. Because in upcoming videos where I'm doing more mixes, you're going to hear the results. And, you know, these are, I don't want to say secrets, but these are tips that a lot of audio engineers might not tell you. And I am an open book with this kind of stuff. So ReaComp, this is all Reaper built-in plugins. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with them other than ugly GUIs and just, you know, they might not always be the best at what they're capable of or what other. I do like Regate sometimes, so this is a good one. Oh, I don't know why I put Reamp on there. It was just kind of in the list. And then Reverb, which I believe is, yeah, it's an impulse response plugin. Anyway, I want to keep this video quick because it's Christmas Eve and I want to get it out before midnight. So let me show you guys the mix bus plugins first, or the master track, as it were. So Sienna, I have it on the freebie one, but I do have, yeah, I think I bought the A and B library. So these were not given to me by Acoustic Audio. These were purchased by yours truly because I really believe in this product. But if Acoustic Audio wants to NFR me the rest of them, I'd be very happy. But no, Sienna is a very cool plugin and it's useful as heck. ARC3 also, so this is for speaker calibration. This one is for headphones calibration that simulates speakers and a room. And then SonarWorks is similar, and it came out before Sienna. It's a headphone calibration plugin that aims to flatten out your headphones so that your mixes translate to the most amount of playback systems as possible. So I still have all three loaded up in case I want to check things. Speaking of check, but I guess I could have this on there too. I would put it first in the line. I usually just have this when I'm mixing. Anyway, like I said, I want to make this quicker than the full-length video, which I'm going to release tomorrow if I have time on Christmas Day, and where I go into the thought process in much more depth. So for the vocals, again, we're building a Focusrite Studio Console in the box. I believe this is based off of the Focusrite ISA channel strip, which is kind of similar to the Focusrite Studio Console channel strip. So a big seal. I debated on whether I would use Zafir this or the Brainworks one, and I decided to go with this because I've had good experience with it in the past, and I think it just works better for vocal duties. Zafir can be a little pointy sounding, which I think works better for other instruments, but not vocals. Next in line is the 1176 plugin from Arturia, and then I replaced the LA2As that I got from the Trident recording console mix template and replaced it with the Tube Stay Level, which is a retro instrument stay level plugin, which also has advanced controls. So this works good for vocals and bass guitar, possibly even mix bus. And then finally, we have an Empirical Labs Distressor and 1176 Blackface emulation. This one's really good. I like the one from Arturia a little bit better, but if I want a different one for some reason, I go with that. And of course, the Distressor is just absolutely fantastic for vocals, but you might not always want a clean compressor sound, you know? So, I mean, I guess I could always put the distortion stuff on, but anyway, next up is the FabFilter Pro DS plugin. I do have other de-esser plugins, but this one I usually go back to. I did spend good money on this, so that's one reason, but it's just a good overall voice-centric. I mean, you can put it on the all-around mode, but I typically just use this for voices. And then finally, our tape plugin, and this keeps happening to me, the GUI scaling does not stay where it should, and I don't know. Anyway, this is the MCI JH24, I believe is the official name for it. Tape machine, good all-around tape plugin. It can do either 15 inches per second or 30, 4 different tape formulas. So moving on. The rest of these tracks are pretty much going to be similar as far as like the tape stuff, but any differences I'll talk about. So here we have the Focusrite, the official Focusrite Studio Console plugin from Brainworks, Plugin Alliance, whatever you want to call them. And it's good. Best way to describe it is it has an open sound, but it still has some girth to it in the, you know, like the lows. Like it just has a, you know, it's a bigness, but a clarity. And that's why I'm making this virtual recording console template. Okay, now here's a new one for the list. This is the VLA3A from Black Rooster Audio. They recently had a great sale. If you missed it, shame on you. Anyway, the VLA3A is an emulation of the Teletronics or the Yuri LA3A, and it is just great. It is just a fantastic overall compressor plugin. When I finally get some hardware, well, I do have an 1176 clone, but when I get another compressor, I will probably be getting an LA3A clone because I like it that much. It just works on so many different things. It can work on vocals, it can work on bass, it can work on acoustic guitar, electric. I mean, there's so many uses, and it's so simple to use. Why do I like it over the LA2A? I don't know, but I just do. It just, to me, it just, you can get more compression out of it. I don't know if it's the Black Rooster Audio clone. They did a really good job. Honestly, they did a fantastic job on this plugin, and yeah. Okay, speaking of LA2A, if I want that, the Hornet one, this is low cost, and it works good, has makeup gain automatically, so you can just adjust this knob, and you don't even have to worry about the gain knob like you do in other plugins. You know, just keep adjusting that till it sounds bad, then back off of it, and then that's it. Same way with the VLA3A. You know, I mean, you do have a limiter on here too. You just adjust this. Now you know, and as you're adjusting it and getting gain reduction, you start adjusting this. In real life, you would have two hands, or I should say one hand on each knob as you adjust. And then again, you get it sounding bad, and then you back off a little bit. That's it. So finally, we have the LA. Here we go again with IK. The LA2A, I'm sorry, the white 2A from IK Multimedia, and it's just the same as HA2A. I think it sounds smooth as compared to the HA2A, which I think sounds a little bit more like the LA2A that's up on Access Analog, which doesn't always work with everything, which I found to be interesting. But anyway, the white 2A is another good alternative choice. And then finally, for bass, so this is either bass guitar or bass synth. we have a plugin that adds harmonics in the upper and lower mids if you need them. And it's called Noor from Clevgrand. Kick drum. So finally we have the newer plugin Zaffer from Acoustic Audio, and I have it set to preamp number 3, which simulates the Focusrite Studio Console circuitry. And this one is actually not based on, well, what's the best way to put it? It is based on the mastering equalizer, I believe the 315 from Focusrite, which that itself is based on the Focusrite Studio Console equalizer. And yeah, so I have all this set up on there because I think the kick drum is an important instrument. And then next I have a Retro Instruments. What is this called? Oh my goodness. Well, this plugin's called Acoustic Audio Smoke. Anyway, it's essentially a better, improved design over the Pultec EQP1A. I do wish that they would update the GUI so I could make it bigger. But as it stands, it's a nice solid plugin. Oh, you know, another thing I wish I would do is make it so that just this section was bigger, like they have with this. So see how big those knobs are? So if they just took it like that, and it, you know, still be a stereo plugin if you want it, because a lot of times I'm just not using this other, you know, set of EQs and gains and all that. Like, I'm just not using that. Another nice feature about this, like I said, it's an improved design. So they added a high pass filter. This is based off the real hardware where you have either a high pass at 40 hertz or at 90 hertz. And you also have the ability to have all these different high pass filters. I don't know what hardware they use to get this one, but it's different. And then on the low pass side of things, again, based off the hardware, I think. But this is definitely not based off the hardware. All right, moving on. Again, like I was saying, Pultec EQP1A. This is a direct clone off of that, I believe, from Red Rock Sound. And then we have our here we go again with the GUI scaling. I made this bigger. Why does it not stay big? Anyway, this is based off of the SSL channel strip compressor, and it adds that snap or punch if you want it, if you need it in your kick drum. That's the primary usage of this, in my opinion. Same thing with the Gray Pro from Acoustic Audio. I don't know if they still have the free Gray that they had available for last year, but it emulates 3 different DBX compressors, and it also gets that snap for kick drum. I already talked about Noor. It adds extra upper mid I should just say mid harmonics so that it punches through a mix if your kick drum or whatever does not have enough of those. And then I think RRS bass enhancer Red Rock Sound bass enhancer is essentially the same kind of deal. T-Rax Tape Machine 24 based off the MCI JH24 tape machine. And again, it keeps making my GUI smaller. I don't know why that happens. But anyway, tape machine is a nice thing to have sometimes. And then I have also Slate Digital's virtual tape machines for the kick drum. Again, I'm not going to talk about the same plugins if I've already talked about them. I'll just show you guys what my chain is. This is for the snare drum. Oh, so Compressor is another Empirical Labs distressor kind of plugin. And it was available for free about 3 years ago. That's when I picked it up. It's good. It's a nice, good, clean compressor. It can, you know, get nasty if you want it to. With the GB mode, which stands for Great Britain. And the nice thing was when you hit that, it actually takes it to the 1-to-1 ratio, which on the hardware you have to do manually. Finally, just as before, the MCI JH24 emulation from IK Multimedia. Tom drums. Already talked about the Focusrite SC plugin. Now, the FG Red is a Focusrite Red 3 compressor plugin, unofficially. from Slate Digital. I've had this, I think, for over a decade now, and I've been told that this particular compressor might sound good on tom drums. So I have it on the list, and there you go. And I also have these two from Slate Digital. I already talked about this, but the Distressor and the 1176 Universal Audio emulation. Talked about that too. Okay, tom drum number 2 is next. Same deal. Now here's a different DBX 165 compressor emulation. This one's from Arturia. And then finally, virtual tape machines. And then finally, tom number 3. Pretty much the same thing as tom number 2. Yep. Because tom drums don't get used that often in mixes, I just don't use the best of the best plugins for them. It just doesn't make any sense to me to do that. And then for the drum room, I have the Focusrite SC. Compressor comes back again. And then we have the Monster from Slate Digital, which is an emulation of the 1176 all buttons in mode, which just really just gets this crazy chaotic sound. And then when you blend that in underneath the original track, it just sounds cool. It's what gets drums to sound more like you're in the same room as a real drum set. I'm not sure why that happens, and it's a trick that a lot of engineers use. And then finally, the 1176 clone. Electric guitar. So we're using Zafir again from Acoustic Audio. 1176 Blackface from Arturia. BLA3A, like I was talking about earlier, Distressor. Virtual tape machines. And then finally, here's a newer one. The Louder Than Liftoff Silver Bullet, which is primarily a saturation plugin. There is an EQ built into it as well. I love this real hardware when I use it on Access Analog. So I think that for the electric guitar, I like to have something a little bit different from the rest of the tracks. So right now I have it just set where the Mojo C is on for the SSL 4000. But yeah, the Hitmaker 4000 is an emulation of the SSL. I believe the 4000G, if I remember correctly. Acoustic guitar, Big Seal, LA3A, compressor. This is a newer one, so in fact, I meant to do this. So Loudmax is a nice sounding limiter that, I was going to say brick wall limiter. There's something about the way it handles transients that works well with acoustic guitars, I found. So I have this one loaded up. And again, the idea is that you're not slamming these tracks too much, except maybe the drum room mic. You're going to just have it where it's subtle compression, transparent compression. Elysia Music EQ. Here's one I haven't talked about yet. So I really like the one that's up on mixanalog.com. Mixanalog's Music EQ. This is like a very expensive equalizer, primarily used for mastering, but I found it works pretty good for acoustic guitar. It's just an alternative to the Focusrite. If for some reason the Focusrite just isn't good enough, I have that as a backup plan, essentially. You know what? I don't know why I have that after the compressors. I really should move that up there. And in fact, I should move this one too. So acoustic guitars sound good with the Pultec EQ a lot of times. You can really boost the high end. And then finally, I have Sonable Smart Comp 2. If I really need to just even out the signal just a little bit more transparently, then Smart Comp 2 is it. Smart Comp 2 eats up CPU and latency, so I think it's a good idea to use it during the mix prep / pre-mix / virtual recording console phase of mixing. And then just like with the electric guitar, I have the Silver Bullet Mark II on the Hitmaker 4000 setting. Okay, next up we have the keys, which represents either a piano, an electric keyboard, a synthesizer, everything falls under keys, in my opinion. So first we have Zaffer, and then we have the Zaffer compressor, and then we have the stressor plugin. Again, we have the Focusrite Red 3 compressor. And then here's a newer one. This is a Fairchild 670/Fairchild 660 emulation plugin. You have 4 different types. These are all clones of the Fairchild, to be fair. No pun intended. But yeah, Midnight from Acoustica Audio. It sounds good on keyboards and pianos and all that stuff. Then we had the Louder Than Liftoff Silver Bullet, again on the Hitmaker 4000 setting. And also with the, I'm taking it N into A, which means Neve into API. And yeah, good times indeed. Finally, a tape emulation plugin. And we're getting to the last 2 tracks now. So we have the strings. So Focusrite SC plugin. Notice that I have these settings on total modeling technology, I think. I have this set to different channels on all these different tracks. I don't know how much that actually helps, but I do it anyway. Once again, Pultec EQ P1A. And you know what I should have? Hold on, I'm going to add something. So this is like the mid-band frequency Pultec emulation. The GUI doesn't represent it, but these are all the bands you can use for that actual hardware. Whoops, almost forgot to talk about the utilities track. So I have Fire the Dove, which is a backup de-esser kind of plugin. It goes after frequency resonances, which can be problematic. And it's like one of those kind of plugins, if you know what I'm talking about. If not, then oh well. Pawn Shop Comp 2 from Corniff Audio. Cool little plugin that's just like an overall good compressor. So if my other compressors aren't working, then this one is a good backup plan. For saturation, we have the Reamp from Klebgrand. And you know what? In fact, I'm going to add the HG2 onto this. And then finally, we have the Analog Matrix plugin from Access Analog, which allows you to connect and process your audio through real hardware. So that about wraps it up, everybody. I hope you had a Merry Christmas if you celebrate. If not, then Happy New Year to you. And if you don't think the New Year's coming up, then just I hope you had a good day in general. This has been Adam for Real Home Recording.